Hello everyone, you're watching GamerLogic.net. I'm Mike Murtis, and on today's episode, we're checking out 1980X on the Nintendo Switch. No one in their right mind would get on this subway in this city at 2 a.m., but you know exactly why you got on it. With your fists taped up and bloodlust on your mind, it's time to take the violence that pulses into your heart to the street gangs and the slums of the city. Welcome to Beating Heart, the introduction game for 1980X. Beating Heart is a side-scrolling beat-em-up paying homage to games like Double Dragon and Final Fight, but really, it's directly tapping into the energy presented in Sega's Streets of Rage beat-em-up series. The game has a fantastic music track that gets you pumped up to start smashing skulls, but the game is not exactly perfect. Hit detection feels slightly off, giving a disconnected feel between the player and the enemies, often resulting in you getting knocked down unfairly. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like you can lose in Beating Heart. If you run out of energy and lose a life, you can instantly continue and start right where you left off. After making it to the end of the second stage of Beating Heart, you transition into the actual story and hub game itself, that is 1980X. The story of 1980X, while slightly mysterious, is very by the numbers. Players are introduced to Kid, a troubled teen whose life was recently changed due to a drastic event within her family. What is that drastic change? It's never quite explained, but it's enough to give Kid the teenage angst and depression needed to find that magic escape to go to feel better, and that ends up being the arcade. While the story in the game never really ramps up, you have to appreciate the pixel art and the beautiful synthwave music that is associated with these cutscenes. I used a full Philips Hue light setup while I was playing this game, and it greatly enhanced the experience as my room was painted in an 80s neon wash of colors. During each storyline cutscene, you'll be transitioned to another arcade game that pays its respects to other genres in video game history. First up, Out of the Void.
I'd seen video games before. Dad even brought home one black and white model when I was really young.
Out of the Void is a side-scrolling space shoot-'em-up that I felt was most inspired by the Darius or R-Type games. Surrounded by enemy squadrons and space battleships, it's up to you to pierce through the wall of defenses standing in front of you to make it out alive. There's a nice variety of enemies presented in the game, and all your typical shoot-'em-up power-ups like different weapons, speed boosters, and score bonuses are all introduced. While games like R-Type are known for their difficulty, Out of the Void is pretty easy to complete. Enemy patterns from the low-ranking enemies to the bosses are pretty easy to identify and avoid. The pixel art in this game and music is fantastic, and Out of the Void doesn't have that disconnected feel of control that Beating Heart seems to have. Sadly, you'll blast through Out of the Void in about 5 to 10 minutes, and then it's on to the next game, the Runaway. Have you ever played Outrun? If you have touched that amazing Sega racing masterpiece, then you'll pick up where the Runaway got its inspiration from very quickly. The concept of the game is simple. Tear through a variety of roads and locales while avoiding other cars, trees, traffic lights, and whatever else could cause a car accident. You'll have to do so in a limited amount of time, however, and if you run out, game over. Time can be extended by hitting checkpoints to extend your overall time. Here's where you're going to pick up the most repetitive part of my review today. Like all the rest of the arcade games featured in 1980X, the Runaway contains beautiful pixel art and a great soundtrack. After passing through a few checkpoints, you'll finally make it to the city where your time clock is massively extended to start telling more of the main 1980X storyline. While riding through this neon city in this extended segment is neat, it feels hugely padded out, especially when there is no real end to the sequence. So let's talk about the last two arcade games featured in 1980X, Shadow Play and Killscreen. Yes, they both have great soundtracks, and yes, they have beautiful pixel art. Shadow Play is an auto-scroller where you'll hack and slash your enemies and avoid obstacles to survive. This is probably the longest game featured in 1980X, and honestly my least favorite due to just how boring it is. There's not enough variety with it, and you'll be hoping it ends quickly so that you can move on to Killscreen. Killscreen is a 3D wireframe dungeon crawler RPG that plays like the dungeon sections of the original Phantasy Star. This was by far the most challenging game for me to beat, as I initially didn't understand that after choosing an attack action that you can press attack again when the red indicator on your HUD gets smaller to do more damage. Once you figure that out, the game is pretty easy. After defeating 3 dragons, the game ends, and so does 1980X. Easily the most disappointing thing about 1980X is its length. I completed this game in under an hour. The mini games featured in it just do not last, and the ones you do want to last don't, and the ones you don't want to last do, which is extremely unfortunate. At $9.99, under an hour of gameplay is a little steep, but the way I look at it is this game is more of an experience rather than a full-featured game. It takes you back to an era. It takes you back to an era of the late 80s, early 90s, where we went to the arcade and we experienced these games in all its different genres of space shooters, of beat-em-ups, not really a wireframe dungeon crawler RPG that was really more console-based, but overall it captures that experience. Sure, the storyline's a little lackluster as well, but you can't beat the beauty and presentation of the game overall, despite its flaws and its shortness. And again, I can't say enough about this soundtrack. Throughout all the different games, it's beautiful. And while I've looked at this game for the past couple of months, it was finally picking up the vinyl soundtrack for the game that got me to purchase the game. And it fits in so well with the game, but it also fits in with everyday life. You can listen to it in the office, in the car. It's overall a great soundtrack. Now, the game does say that it will be continued, meaning that hopefully there's a sequel on the way with maybe some more games, some better storytelling, and really needed length. But we'll have to see how that goes. Again, at $9.99, this may be a too short of a game to pick up for that price range, but once it goes down in price, maybe $5, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Thanks for watching Gamer Logic. I'm Mike Murtis, and thank you.